This is Connor. This is my lovely friend Brianna Wu. We're running another show of Counterfire. We're going to be talking a little bit of smack about Candace Owens today. And, you know, if you haven't been here before, obviously I love talking about the wonderful science fiction universes that I break down. However, I'm also very much into politics. And if you're unfamiliar with that, then welcome aboard. I identify as center right. Miss Brianna Wu, do you want to do any introductions for yourself before we get into it?
Sure. My name is Brianna Wu. I'm a former congressional candidate here in Massachusetts. Most people know me from Gamergate. I used to be really hardcore left. Since recent events have made me kind of ask a little bit more about who I need to be talking to and who I need to be aligning myself with. So,
wait, that's funny. Sorry,
yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say,
ahead.
like, it's funny that you kind of bring that up because, you know, I'm rearing to go into the Candace Owens stuff, but at the same time, we're almost like celebrating like a resurgence of the, you know, the of like Gamergate and video game culture and the conflicts around it and all that kind of stuff. I know you went on to a couple of shows to discuss it, but what's your vibe now that you've had a week of Gamergate discourse? So what's going through your head?
I will leave Gamergate 2.0 to the next generation to fight. You know, I think that these game devs, I think it is such a mistake of them to try to shut down the dialogue around Sweet Baby. If a bunch of gamers want to put together a list of, you know, a company and say, don't buy these games, guess what? That's free speech. They're going to do it on Steam anyway. You can't stop that discourse. And when you make art, you need to be prepared to get feedback on it. So I think a lot of that feedback is entirely uninformed and stupid, but, you know, there's no law saying you can't be stupid. There's a lot of harassment obviously going on. Don't do that. But at the core of it, like, so much of this would just be sidestepped if we could treat gamers like adults, in my view.
No, it was actually, it was wildly funny. I had to go on to a WIC panel as like the pro gamer gator guy. And then like, as I'm fighting, I realize how much I don't care. So so you were kind enough to temper the progressive side and say like, hey, let's not freak out. Let's not treat all gamers like they're evil, you know, maniacal monsters. I will say that, like, at the end of the day, if like female models in video games get a little bit desexualized, you know, maybe that's good because everyone is a bunch of Coomer-brained idiots anyways. So maybe like a little bit of progressive temperance would actually be helpful to reduce the amount of over-sexualization that's in our culture anyways. And then also, if you see...
Before we move on to that, I want to address that. Because I think what the culture considers sexy is different today than 1990, right? Like, if you look at, you know, Baywatch and all this kind of stuff, it's a little bit cringe to see. So I have no issue. Like, Stellar Blade is coming out. I'm super psyched for that. I love porny games with hot women protagonists. I'm sorry, it's my feminist guilty pleasure. I'm embarrassed about it, but I like these games. At the same time, I don't think every game in the market needs to be that. Like, Mass Effect is a stronger, like, the world is stronger because all the women in it are wearing like cool, tough armor that looks pragmatic. So,
and then it just happens to have sex as like a side, like a side 100%. Adventure thing. Yeah, which I'm sure is optional too. The but see, here's the thing. So I actually have somebody who went like, yeah, nah, and like, and so like, but for me, like, you have to understand, like, I came up in the over-sexualized gamer era, so I'm used to, you know, triple F, Lara Croft, polygon boobies, and all the marketing very sexualized. Leisure Suit Larry ads were at the back of every PC gamer that was like an adult game. And then also, what was it? Soul Calibur. There's a character named Ivy who will basically rip you to shreds.
She's my main.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, here's the thing: is like Ivy kind of like awoke something in me. So like, we need to like, and I was only 13 or 14 at the time.
Understandable.
So I don't know.
Understandable.
Yeah, but see, like, I don't know if that needs to be like all media. So if they reduce the sexual appeal of Lara Croft a smidge, then maybe I shouldn't complain too much. But anyways.
Look,
but I'm also almost 40, so like I should be focused more on my family anyways. I shouldn't be worried about boobs in video games.
You know what? I'm sorry to tell my feminist friends out there, you are never going to stop 13-year-old boys from wanting to look at boobs. It's just never going to happen. You need to make your peace with it. And you can have a variety of games in the marketplace. I think it's okay.
I think that's the stronger.
Yeah.
That's the stronger
100%.
argument. It's like, yeah, make a broad variety of games. Don't take every AAA male fantasy and then shove it into the progressive grinder, but also actually have decent, narratively diverse, interesting stories. That was one of the things that actually we kind of all landed on, was that Baldur's Gate 3, in a lot of ways, is emblematic of the kind of diversity that progressive people would want to see in video games, but people didn't complain about it because it was done so well and the mechanics are so good that ultimately, like, anybody complaining about that, like, oh, there's demons and there's black people in my fantasy games, they were just called nerds and told to buzz off. Whereas I think when it's a little bit more in your face, then, I understand the complaints a little bit more. But also what I would say even to those people is, like, let's say that you're swinging around, New York City as Spider-Man 2, Miles Morales, you're a mixed race Spider-Man, and then you see like an LGBT flag or whatever, just shoot some webs at it and keep moving. Like it's not really gonna affect your life overall if you see that gay people exist. Even conservatives have to acknowledge that gay people exist. Even if you have a preference that they wouldn't be.
But let's be honest, Connor. There is part of the progressive movement, and look, there's part of us that just wants to put it in your face and dare you to disagree with us. There's part of our brain that enjoys doing that. The same way, the same way that some conservatives love, like, gun culture or some of their issues. So I don't always think that's productive. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I actually think a lot of these issues, if we were less abrasive about it and a little bit normal, I actually think we'd be more effective. So
so during the conversation, not to shower moment debate it after the fact, but Hutch kind of did that in the debate. For those of you who haven't watched it, just check the Gamergate 2.0 debate on Counterfire. It should be up by now. But basically, like, Hutch was like, oh yeah, well, a MAGA, what is it? It's like, there isn't a universal morality. Therefore, some of the subjective things that I think are good versus bad are not going to line up with yours. I think that some of these things are universal goods and conservatives don't. And his examples were like LGBT representation, pride flag, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas we were talking about how they did a mod where they just turned all the pride flags and pride graffiti into American flags. And this was the only thing that they did was they did a mod where they changed the geocode to conservative societies like Saudi Arabia and Iran and all that kind of stuff, where they sold the game. That way they didn't do like a crazy mod, they just geolocate shifted. And so the people who hosted that mod actually got banned. And so he was saying that was...
That's weird.
Transphobic and homophobic. And to me, I was like, for me, it's like that. I understand that the motivation to do that could be homophobic or transphobic. However, I would view that as neutral because, like, I don't think that switching out the pride flag for the American flag really... I think a gay person could still play that game and not notice anything. And I think a straight person could play that game and not notice anything. And so it would be like a value neutral modification.
At some point, the left needs to get a lot more comfortable with free speech, right? And if someone wants to do that, that's their prerogative. I mean, there are all kinds of, like, I haven't seen Yellowstone yet, just because I know it's kind of a right-wingy kind of show, even though it's really, really good. It's just, I don't know. I think people can make decisions, and we just need to understand that people are not gonna
I
agree
want to
with
get into the
it.
Candace content, but you keep bringing up funny things. Like a lot of people, at least it's a meme on the internet, they talk about how conservative coded media is being used to push like liberal and progressive messaging. And so they have the dad from Yellowstone sitting on the back of a truck, and it's like, round here, we respect our trans friends, and like that kind of shit. And like, so I literally have Christian Valera saying, no, it ain't, in the comments section. Like, yeah, like there's, I'm trying to think of another thing. Shane Gillis is not particularly, he's Republican coded, you know, like he says swear words and he makes retard jokes and he does, you know, silly little goofs that lean a little bit more Republican-y, but then he will like hit you with like a liberal perspective every now and then. And so I think the 4chaners think that it's all like a Mossad psyop, but I don't think it is. I just think that people they touch a little bit more grass than online people. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's like a bad horror movie where they can't get the original cast back for the sequel. That's this Gamergate. So I wish the new franchise the best, but I hope it dies really soon.
No, honestly, I think compared to the 6 months of rage that the last one was, I already see this one tempering out a little bit. So, you know, it could come and go almost immediately, and I don't think it's going to be hopefully too big of a deal. So hopefully we're not beating this one to death for a while. But that brings us kind of into, unless we have other notes on that brings us into the topic that we wanted to hit for the next hour or so, is Candace Owens. So Candace Owens was dismissed from the Daily Wire. Some conservatives and libertarians are freaking out because they think this is conservatives using cancel culture to cancel Candace Owens for being spicy on Israel and contrarian on Israel and Zionism and all that kind of stuff. We're going to watch some content today in order to try to get into the meat of it. But what's your general vibes on Candace Owens and Zionism and cancel culture and conservatives and Daily Wire? What's your general vibe just from the exterior, you know, not seeing anything yet?
So people forget this, but Candace Owens was heavily involved in the aftermath of Gamergate, just like, you know, like Steve Bannon and a whole bunch of other right-wing figures. She was there at the very end. She tried to start a site called, what was it? It was like Social Unmasked.
Social Autopsy.
Like Social Autopsy, which was basically a doxing site for trolls on the internet, where she wanted to go after them. This upset Zoe Quinn. I thought it was a bad idea. If I remember correctly, Anita Sarkeesian thought it was a bad idea. And we tangled on the internet quite a bit. And my main thought was she just hasn't changed. You try to have a conversation with her, and it just... it's almost like she's got her mind made up and it's just not productive, if that makes sense. So it seems so, like, I understand, like you work with Progressive Victory. I would imagine you don't walk into Progressive Victory meetings and start talking about gun rights, you know? Like, sometimes you gotta match your message for the room you're hanging out in. And I thought it was very surprising she was leaning full into the blood libel thing. So that was I want to find that clip in particular. Hopefully the Young Turks come through for us on it. They might frame it a little interestingly, but I want to do it. And then just giving my take on Candace Owens before we get into it. So I used to watch Dave Rubin. I watched Dave Rubin in 2016, 2017, and I thought that he actually had a Lex Friedman kind of vibe where he wasn't necessarily insightful or interesting himself, but he was a decent presenter of his interview subject. And so as a result, he would ask interesting prodding questions. And there was, of course, like all sorts of personalities back then. Blair White, who is it? Stephen Molyneux, Lauren Southern, Sam Harris. I'm trying to think of like all the big names from back then, but those are the ones that pop into my head. Oh, Sargon of Akkad, he did a few interviews with. And so those were all fairly interesting. But Candace Owens seemed to come out of like nowhere, where to the point that I would borderline think that she was astroturfed, where she was like a progressive who sued her high school district for racist discrimination, created Social Autopsy. Democratic elected official, I would add.
She was, or her parents were?
The person who was racially harassing her and being racist to her was an elected Democratic official in her town. So that is her villain origin story. That's where she came from.
Nice. Yeah. So, but then she wanted to create Social Autopsy, which was, like you said, people say doxing. I don't know if I guess it kind of fits it, but basically what would happen is you would track harassing profiles online that were saying vulgar shit, and then eventually if there was personally identifiable information that became available, you would tag it to the profiles. And so you would build these profiles of publicly available information along with harassing social media platforms. That way people would become accountable for their online speech. This was wildly unpopular at the time. I still don't think it's very popular. And that's because people like saying slurs on the internet, including me. So...
Well, it's just not ethical, too. I mean, you can't go around, like, doxing every single person that disagrees with you. And let's be really honest, man. I mean, let's not pretend the left does not employ these same Gamergate tactics these days. We do. So, yeah, I don't want to trust that tactic.
What's actually interesting though, I'm trying to think of how it would be functionally different than a popular doxing site that I'm thinking about. And even if it was from a progressive lens where you're trying to dox conservative or contrarian or dissident right harassers, I still don't know how it's functionally different than one of the popular doxing websites, because it's literally just attach profile, attach public information, link it, that way people can search the profile to find publicly available information. So I think that even if the political slant was for progressives, then I would still think that would functionally be the same as any other doxing website. So that's interesting. Anyways, so getting back into Candace Owens' lore from my perspective was that she went to a meeting after doing like a Dave Rubin interview. She went to a meeting, met Charlie Kirk, became a TPUSA pundit, stayed with TPUSA for a while, built her own popularity, joined the Daily Wire. I always thought that she was too big for her britches. I didn't think that she had like coherent vision to offer the world. I don't think she can like define conservatism. I think she's just a angry, pissed off person who will take the talking points and run with them. That's always been my vibe.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said. And I also think she's got a bit of the Rob Knorr conspiracy theorist to her. So,
Me too. But
do
yeah,
you believe in conspiracy?
Well, it depends on which one you're talking about. So I'm not trying to distract
January
us.
6th was a
Antifa psyop? No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Listen,
do you believe that the president of France is married to a transgender woman?
No, but I do believe that Justin Trudeau is Fidel Castro's son.
Okay, fair enough. Do you believe that Justin Trudeau beat up Matthew Perry when they were children?
Depends on who tells the story. If Matthew Perry told the story, you know, he's an alcoholic, he's a drug addict, he might have exaggerated a little bit. If Trudeau told the story, then, you know, he has an ego, he likes to exaggerate things, et cetera, et cetera. I would have skepticism on both ends, to be honest. I would want to talk to their friends.
It's in Matthew Perry's biography.
Nice, based. So, hey, listen, Justin Trudeau's actually a little bit of a bully, and he's got an edge to him. That redeems him a little bit in my eyes. But yeah, I could get distracted on another 10 tangents. I'm not going to. I'm going to pull up the content. We'll get cracking. But what we're going to start with is even if it's colored, and by colored I just mean that it's framed. It's a framed interview piece by the Young Turks. We're going to watch it anyways, just to see if we can get into any meat. We're going to see if Candace Owens really did say anything that egregious. And if she did, we'll share our thoughts. And if she didn't, then maybe this will become a Candace Owens defense stream. Probably not, but...
Just 1 second before we start, because we've not fixed our letting me listen to YouTube clips as we're playing it. I need to go grab my headphones so I can play this as we're going. So I'll be back in 1 second.
Understood. I'll talk to chat. So, somebody, Timbo says, I thought Counterpoints was a conservative, not a woman. I said, well, I'm not a woman, so. And then they said, starting to sound like one. And I said, how so? Let's see if we have another Timbo response. I don't see a response from Timbo. So, you know, you can tell me how I'm starting to sound like a woman anytime you feel like. Too many sheep who put these people on a pedestal. Yes, I absolutely feel the same way about punditry in general. You should have, like, pundits should be like a vehicle for information, but they shouldn't be your saviors or your prophets. That's, I think you should have your own.
You want to be the God Emperor. Don't lie.
I don't want to be the God Emperor. That's too much responsibility. I could not actually be responsible.
I think that's what all the Warhammer is about.
No, so yeah, you know what? Just sharing this as like a personality thing, like I wish that within Warhammer there are clear enemy factions that are incontrovertibly evil and are therefore deserving of like actual scorn and genocide and slaughter. And so I really wish, I think a lot of men actually they kind of wish that they could be put into a clear battle with right and wrong, whereas the world is oftentimes so much more complex. So, you know, jihadists, as an example, they oftentimes are so evil that you can kind of, you know, justify destroying the organizations and institutions because they commit such grievous crimes. But then when you realize that, like, the collateral damage from military operations hits the civilian population in such an aggressive way that the civilian population of Arab countries view collateral damage from Western military operations and terrorism as the same, they're not the same to me, but they view those as moral equivalents, you start to understand, like, the fucked up, violent math that goes into creating jihadists. And it becomes a little bit more gray because, like, the more violent and horrible and scorched earth you are, the more propaganda you hand over to terrorists. So you need to kill them, and then you need to minimize civilian casualties, and that's not a clear war. That's not easily defined barriers.
I think you should write your own Warhammer campaign. I would play through that. That would be really cool. Like, your kind of politics, that would, oof.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. Again, I'm tangenting, but one of the things that I wanted to do is, like, I could never go full chaos. Like, I like chaos, but I could never go full chaos. So I came up with the Cult of the Iron Father. It's basically like Iron Warriors who they look at the Chaos Gods and they're like, these are a bunch of nerd, demon, loser weirdos. But then they look at the Imperium of Man and they're like, this is a weak, flawed, corrupt institution that's on the verge of collapse. You know what we're going to do is we're going to worship the creator God of the universe, and anything that survives the test of iron is what should survive into the future. And so as a result, they basically they have a very Darwinian culture designed solely to build strong humans and strong Astartes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But anyways, enough of that.
Let's do Candace Owens. Let's do Candace Owens.
Let's do it. All right. And then if there's anything wrong with the volume,
to reconcile,
I'm going to turn that down a little bit. That's a little high.
The Jewish people that I grew up with and who I love and who are my friends and who are my ex-boyfriend, I guess you would say, with this sort of DC Jew who is using these words, not because they believed that what they were hearing was actually anti-Semitism or Jew hating, but to basically silence people. They were threatening people.
She can't be anti-Semitic, folks. She dated a Jewish guy once. But on Wednesday, Candace Owens went on an extended anti-Semitic tirade on her show, which you just watched a small portion of. But here's some very brief context behind why she's talking about this. It started with her explaining that someone accused her of anti-Semitism for speaking out against ads that the Israeli government aired during the Super Bowl. She argued that the ads were meant to distract Americans from the assault on Rafah that began Sunday. She also took issue with the third ad that was aired by an NGO, which asked viewers to call their representatives to demand the release of the Israeli hostages. She also questioned why Americans should call their elected officials about something happening in another country. But that
okay, you can start. I'm actually going to take notes. So DC Jews. That hit me weird, but that's fine. That's like saying the DC blacks. Super Bowl ads, representatives for hostages. That's my notes. You go ahead. Tell me your initial thoughts.
Well, it's like the charitable read on a lot of this is it's like, okay, it's weird, but she's critiquing Israel. I think if you get into like the subtext that's here, is kind of that Jews are controlling the world and the United States. So I can understand why that is landing really, really weird for different people. This is why I'm a really big believer in give these people a microphone. Like, put her on Piers Morgan. Let her tell everything she thinks about Jewish people and the level of like control Israel has over the United States government. Just let her give her views, and we'll know more precisely.
Yeah, so I'm gonna blame Donald Trump for this. He had a very interesting moment in the 2016 campaign where he just started speaking the way that he speaks, right? And he's like, I have an excellent relationships with the blacks, you know, Reverend Sharpton is a good friend of mine, like all that kind of stuff. And then he also was like, you know, happy Cinco de Mayo to my Mexican friends, you know, Trump Tower has the best Mexican bowls or whatever. And so he kind of did this like casual boomer uncle actual, you know, like racist speech. And I think up until then, it was relatively not acceptable to speak that way because like you wouldn't say the blacks, you would say, you know, my black friend Alex or something like that, right? Like you would try to humanize the person. You wouldn't use their demographic descriptor as the one variable that identifies them. But I'm
just a quick aside. Doesn't it drive you crazy? I'm obviously not black. It's just every time a Democratic politician comes up there or a Republican, they start going, my African American friends, my African. I don't know anyone that's not just black personally. Well, I maybe they exist. I just am personally not friends with them.
Yeah. So if saying African American is too weak, and if saying the blacks is too abrasive, then obviously like my black friend Alex is the middle ground, which I would accept. But I'll admit to the fact that I've done this hyperbolically, especially on Twitch and YouTube politics, where it's not as serious, where I'll be like, you know, the blacks or the gays or whatever. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to poke humor at that dehumanization by being casual in its use. I'm not actually trying to say that like I actually conceptualize the blacks as a demographic group who should be identified as such. But the so what's interesting, just pointing this out, Candace Owens' own speech is she's finding it difficult to reconcile the DC Jews who use anti-Semitism as a cudgel to beat down their critics versus the Jewish people that she grew up with. But I think this is one of the things that actually points to what everybody should already know if they actually have any experience with anybody from any demographic, is that there's a wide variation of belief in color and creativity and political leaning and all that kind of stuff. So when you're trying to say like, I knew the good Jews when I was growing up and now I'm being criticized by the bad Jews, yeah, it comes off as like intellectually weak.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, then with the Super Bowl ads, what I would say is that just acknowledging facts as they are, America is probably the strongest geopolitical ally that Israel has. When it comes to populations, I think that Israel has the largest population. If I remember correctly, they're at like 15 million people. I think like the next largest population is in the United States. And I could be totally wrong.
Israel has 11 million people and 2 million of them are Arabs.
Okay,
there it is.
So 9 million. And then I think in the United States, it's 6 million in the United States, something like that. Yeah, so you're basically talking about, I don't know if this dynamic exists any other place in the world besides Ireland, where there is in Ireland, it's even crazier. There is a larger ethnically Irish population in the United States of America than there is in the mother country. And then I can only think of Israel as another demonstration of this, where they almost have a peer amount of population in the United States as they do in Israel. And so for me, if I was fighting what seemed like an existential conflict in the Middle East and North Africa, and there was no fallback position, or the only fallback position that was viable was the United States, yeah, obviously I'm going to go there to try to have influence, guide public policy, make my issues important, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't necessarily deem that as nefarious. So am I naive? Am I being suckered in by the Mossad propaganda?
No, I think that's exactly it. And I also, I saw somebody try to make this point the other day with, like, why are you okay with Israel doing stuff like this, but you're not okay with, like, Cambridge Analytica in Russia? And, to that, I would say it's like, look, first of all, like, Russia is a hostile foreign power. And, like Israel is one of our allies. Like, you shouldn't be surprised when a country is trying to get their point of view in your newsfeed. Just ask all the people in media who took all those sweetheart deals with Saudi Arabia to ask you to go tour there or do magazines for Saudi Arabia. Like, this just exists. So I don't know. I think it's true that countries are trying to get their point of view here. But like, look at, there was a story that came out that I was highlighting on Twitter with Middle Eastern countries spending $3 billion into American higher education. Right. And from that, you can directly trace like a lot of pro-Palestinian support. So I don't know, like countries are going to try to get their point of view into our media. And if you want tougher laws around that, I'm 100% with you. I think this is what the TikTok ban is about.
Yeah, we should keep it moving, but the expansion on the thought. So if there are some conservative minded folks who are not fans of Zionism or Israel in my chat, what I would say is, like, you can have a criticism of like foreign entities having influence on American politics. I don't have that.
100%.
I would just say come with a consistent perspective, because if you're going to say like, well, actually I think it's okay for Saudi Arabia, Oman, Russia, Ukraine, etc. to lobby the United States because our policies affect those countries so much. I know there's a, relatively speaking, unique history with Israel. However, I think that, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We need to come up with universal principles that apply to everyone. So yeah. But we could.
So if I can swing at chat really quickly, because I do think it's fair. I think you can be a principled, like, not asymmetric person and have a really big problem with the degree of support we give for Israel. I think that's a totally fair thing to do. You know, Israel does have a universal healthcare system, and we don't have it here in this country. I would ask people to understand, we get a lot of stuff back from the military aid that we give Israel. We get intelligence about that region of the world. We get cybersecurity expertise. If we end up going to war with Taiwan, those can be tremendously useful. You know, we get military bases there. We get training with Israel. There's a lot of stuff that we get back. But if you want to revisit the memorandum of understanding we have with Israel, giving them, what is it, $18 billion over a decade, I think that is a reasonable discussion to have. And I think it's very much to Congress's. I would very much criticize Congress that they tend to pass these things in back rooms and they don't let us really know the details about it. I did so much research trying to understand exactly which weapons we had given to Israel and what was specifically in these emergency funding measures that, like, Trump had passed, Biden had passed, Obama had passed. We don't know. That's just the truth of it. So I want to see more sunlight here, top to bottom.
Cool. Then let's continue. This is interesting caption right here, but that wasn't the anti-Semitic part of her rant. So let's find out what was.
That wasn't the anti-Semitic part of her rant. She took a long time, of course, as you heard, explaining that she's known many Jewish people throughout her life. But the anti-Semitic part of her rant focused on the distinction that she created, I suppose, between who she considers to be regular Jewish people and who she considers to be, as she called them, DC Jews. Now, here she is comparing the latter group to Black Lives Matter.
This particular people that I've been talking about, that I'm talking about right now, represent a fringe minority of Jewish people that want nothing more than political power. It is just like Black Lives Matter. These people are ultimately Marxists, okay? And when Black Lives Matter was going around calling everybody racist, it was this implicit threat to white people. Do what we say, do what we want, or we will ruin your life. Why else would you refer to someone who is so clearly and evidentially not a Jew hater as one? Because you want power. You want to also make Jewish people paranoid, right? You start using words like the Holocaust is going to be back. And of course, if you're a Jewish person, you hear that, you want to go, oh my gosh, like, what is it? What should we be fighting? We got to fight that thing because I don't want another Holocaust.
I guess
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Okay.
So, no, I'm trying to think of how crazy that is. So this is actually something that bugs me about. I get accused of being Islamophobic a healthy chunk of the time, and I get told that the reason why I have a disdain for jihadism and Islamism is because I am personally bigoted against the religion of Islam and I'm bigoted against brown people. But for me, I would say that oftentimes my motivation for criticizing Islamism, like Islamic theocracy, and jihadism, the belief that violent struggle is necessary in order to implement Islamism, is oftentimes rooted in a reaction to terrorist attacks. Yeah. And so what I find kind of hollow about what Miss Candace Owens just said is the fact that I would think that more than alarmism from quote unquote DC Jews driving Jewish and Israeli concern for the health and safety and well-being of the state of Israel. It's probably the terrorist attack that killed 1,200 people, 900 of them civilians in some of the most brutal ways imaginable, that probably drives their fear and paranoia. That's my personal read on the issue, but I would be interested in your thoughts.
Well, so coming back when I did a really long Twitter thread a few months ago about like the history of Jews getting kicked out of countries like through the last 1,878 years. And one of the themes there was when you get to the Jewish Enlightenment, there was this belief that emerged that if Jews were going to be safe, they needed to participate in the electoral systems of the countries that they were like asking for safety in. So, you can look, and it's just a simple fact of political fundraising that Jewish people do disproportionately donate money. They do it to charity, they do it to nonprofits, they do it to government officials. It's just part of, frankly, a survival strategy. And, we've decided in this country that, to a certain extent, donating to politicians is how, to some extent, you get the policies you want. And they are a bunch of people that are coming together. They're like, we want X, Y, and Z policy. We do want America to be closer to Israel. So my message to you is, this is a democracy. If you want public policy, you've got to go play the game. If you want to go start a PAC tomorrow that is encouraging people to not give money to Israel, that is your right as an American. I would welcome that conversation. But you can do that without these just really shitty stereotypes about Jews secretly controlling the world in Washington. It's anti-Semitism. I don't know what else you can say.
Yeah, and just to olive branch to the more conspiracy theory brained people, there was complaints, not public complaints, but private complaints during the Nixon administration by Richard Nixon saying like, hey, I actually have a bunch of people in my cabinet who are aggressively pro-Israel. And when I look into their ties or whatever, they're sympathetic because they have family members or they were lobbied into being into this position or whatever. And he actually saw a public facing speech of one of his where he was saying that like Israel should, like, we have a special relationship with Israel, but from my perspective, Israel should be one nation amongst half a dozen to a dozen within the region with whom we have a good relationship. So we're not going to have a good relationship with exclusively Israel at the expense of all others. It's going to be a balanced calculation. And so that was his perspective on it. And so
you think it's likely though that Syria or Lebanon or even the Houthis in Yemen, I mean, Egypt we've got a pretty good relationship with, but they're the number 2 recipient of foreign aid. I don't know how realistic it is for us to have an awesome relationship with Bashar al-Assad, right? Like, I don't know.
And then that's the other thing is that there is a reflexive and I would say reasonable hostility to Western influence in the Middle East and North Africa over petroleum, oil access, prioritization of oil access to the Western world, our intervention into their political affairs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I would say is this is the game of geopolitics, and like it or not, oil right now still is the lifeblood of the developed world. So who controls the oil and what it gets sold for, and whether or not the governments that are in charge of the oil are stable, these are all things that we're going to stick our fingers in. And the reason why we're going to stick our fingers in isn't just because we're monomaniacal, mustache twirling evil villains. It's because it actually matters on the global stage whether or not petroleum is produced and whether or not it's distributed to the globe at a reasonable price, which is why there's a healthy chunk of interventionism in the Middle East and North Africa.
Yeah, that's well said.
All right, then I am very curious. Hold on. One more stupid thing before we move on. I desperately want to hear Candace Owens describe what she believes Marxism to be. And I want her to describe the difference between Marxism and cultural Marxism. And I want her to describe the difference between progressivism, liberalism, and Marxism and cultural Marxism. And I want to hear her articulate these varying degrees of lefty thinking in her own words to the best of her ability. Because when she sees Marxists, I've been fighting on Twitch and YouTube politics for, 4 years now. if I was to walk into a Twitch and YouTube political debate and if I was to tell a liberal, a progressive, a Marxist-Leninist, and a libertarian socialist that they are all Marxists, I would be laughed out of the room. I would be called a idiot for not knowing what I was talking about. And as a result, and I don't think I necessarily did that, but I saw it happen enough times that I was naturally curious to figure out what was going on. I don't think it's a sign of weakness to know your enemy, so to speak. And so I would be curious if this likely multi-millionaire political pundit knows what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah. You know, something I think about a lot, and I need to do this better for my debates, but watching Destiny prepare for Ben Shapiro and Norm Finkelstein and all these other nut jobs, he spends so much of his time, if you watch his streams where he's preparing, literally trying to anticipate what their arguments are going to be and understanding their arguments so he can counter them. The entire reason he's effective is because he does understand where they're coming from. I always think it's so interesting. Destiny will do this when you watch him. He'll be like, I can make their argument better than they can. This is a very smart debating technique. So I fully agree with you. It is extremely important to understand where your opponents are coming from.
Yeah. And just addressing somebody in chat real quick. Michael Hayes says, laugh my ass off, Destiny. Listen, we will accept all kinds of Destiny slander. If you want to say he's a Coomer brained, if you want to say he's nihilist, if you want to criticize his personal life, all that kind of stuff.
If you want to blame him for bringing Lav into the world, like, please, yeah,
or Mr.
fair
Girl.
criticism.
Sure,
yes,
sure. However, what I would say is, I think that if you think that Destiny is unintelligent or not capable of holding himself well in a debate, I think you're I think you're wrong. I think you just think that when somebody disagrees with you, they're wrong about everything, and that's actually not how knowledge works. But yeah, enough. They said Destiny bootshine time. It's over. We're okay, guys. That's all I needed to do today to get my GGG bucks. So let's continue.
Anti-Semitism is all in their heads, apparently, according to Candace Owens. But if you didn't think it could get any more disgusting, then brace yourself, because she's about to invoke deeply anti-Semitic tropes and even state that the so-called DC Jews should be weeded out.
I'm excited.
These individuals are evil Marxists. They do underhanded things, underhanded tactics to freak people out.
Hold on. I just need to pause so I can write that down. Evil Marxists, underhanded things, underhanded, disgusting, whatever. Sorry, let's continue.
And to ultimately cause division, right? Their goal is that they are willing to hurt regular, hardworking Jewish Americans so that they can gain political power. I don't hate Jewish people. I hate bad people. And these people are bad. We all should have the right to weed out bad people in our community, because on the left and on the right, there are bad people.
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can be the difference maker, because we just need 1% of our audience to be paid members.
Yes, go ahead,
this
Cenk.
show can be around forever. God. So you can make that difference. Click join now.
Now, after this, she went on to say she opposes any foreign aid, including aid sent to Israel. And then she expressed sympathy for both the Israeli hostages and the innocent Palestinian civilians that are being killed.
True centrist.
I don't think that she actually cares that much about their lives. I'll say this. Of course, it's true that there has been cynically made accusations of anti-Semitism against people who are simply, pro-Palestine. People who are supporting the Palestinian people during the ongoing genocide have been accused of anti-Semitism. I have. I'm sure. I know that Cenk has. I'm sure Jackson has. But that's not what she's talking about. It's not, she didn't just make a statement about, the weaponization of these accusations where they really are not applicable. She then invoked the anti-Semitic trope that there is a cabal of Jewish people who are trying to control all political power in this country. And she has, I guess, declared herself the arbiter of who is actually a good Jewish person and a bad Jewish person, and just went on that anti-Semitic tirade. So I just want to make that distinction, but I mean, it just got worse and worse and worse. Cenk, what did you think of this?
All right, I'm gonna pause it
Oh,
there.
my boy Jake! I want to hear what he says.
Nationalist.
Okay, we can stop. We can stop.
Yeah, I have my bullet points, but do you want to hit anything?
No,
real
go
quick?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so again, I would want to see her define Marxism, cultural Marxism, progressivism, liberalism. I would like to see her actually define these things. I would like for her to describe how the DC Jews are Marxists. You know, how they want to implement socialism, the decommodification of basic human need, and workers owning the means of production, hopefully getting to a communist society where there's no money, state, or class. I would like to hear her describe that in vivid detail, and also how she knows that, like that she personally knows some of these evil DC Jews who are trying to invoke a Marxist, Marxist implementation of the world. But then I do think that she has appointed herself, similar to the TYT commentator, saying like she's the arbiter of who's a good Jew and a bad Jew. Whereas I think that if you actually got these people into a room, the, so to speak, DC Jews who are defensive of Israel, what they would say is that they believe in the Zionist narrative. They believe that Jews were expelled from their home countries. They were hunted all over the globe. They lived at the whim and power of the host countries that they were a part of, that they were slaughtered in Europe, that they escaped from Europe and started the state of Israel as a part of the Zionist project beginning in the 19th century, that has been a very difficult and dangerous project in which the state of Israel was threatened multiple times existentially, and that they have fought for the past century in order to survive. And 10-7 is not some new crazy thing. It's actually just one more beat of the historical events of people trying to end the state of Israel and Jewishness as a ethnicity on the planet. And therefore it's in need of defense. So what about that idea do you take issue with? Is it painting them with too broad a brush? What's your vibe?
I think you hit it right on the head. She's not, it's the problem is she doesn't seem like she has any principles or any specific argument, right? It's Marxism bad. These are bad Jews, quote unquote. And that's what she's hammering on. It's just too broad an argument, which is, yeah, there's a way to, if you can get really explicit with what your criticism is, it helps avoid these kinds of assumptions there. So I think you're entirely right. That's the whole problem.
Okay. Then, yeah. Then the only other thing that I think I wanted to hit on was this actually goes back to the Super Bowl ad. The reason why American congressmen would be petitioned about Israeli hostages, even though it's Israel who's largely conducting military operations and it's Hamas who is largely responsible for the hostage taking, is because Israel does have, or excuse me, the United States does have military capacities. That Israeli military technology is impressive, but we have other technologies that are probably more impressive.
Sure.
We have signals intelligence that is beyond this world. We could probably hack the radios, hack the telecoms, hack the internet signals, hack the cell phone signals in order to find out specifically where the hostages are. Not only that, but we also have extremely powerful special forces technology. So if you wanted to have powerful, quiet drones with weapons be the overhead air cover for Israeli special forces going in and taking hostages, that's another capacity that we can offer. And then also when it comes to back channel pressure, let's say on I forget if it's Oman or if it's Bahrain, but I know that one of the Gulf states actually hosts a component of the political wing of Hamas. The United States has more leverage pressuring those host countries to pressure Hamas to release the hostages than Israel does. If Israel tells Oman or Bahrain to pressure Hamas in order to release the hostages, they're going to laugh in their face and they're going to tell them to pound sand. Whereas if the United States says, hey, we can actually decrease your involvement in this multi-billion-dollar global infrastructure project, and we can reduce the amount of oil that we're consuming from you as a part of the global market by 25%, or you can help us with this Israeli hostage deal. That's the kind of leverage that the United States does have.
That's right. No, it's dead on. And to your point, like one of the things that really, I think, I understand this is counterintuitive, but people have criticized like Biden selling weapons to Israel. One of the things he's selling to Israel is smart weapons. So Israel can come through and they can run their algorithm, determine like Hamas is operating from this house. And then, you know, an Israeli bomber can come overhead and drop a bomb. If that's a dumb bomb, there's a much, much higher like percentage that's going to hit a nearby house, or it's going to be less precise, and innocent people are going to get hurt. One of the major things that we are providing to Israel is smart weapons to make sure they can laser target that and actually hit what they're aiming at. So I've found this repeatedly really surprising that we are critiquing Biden for selling weapons when those are the type of weapons that are going to save civilian lives.
Yeah, that'll reduce casualties.
It will. It's just a fact. So I think it's all like that. I do have to push back a bit on assuming that America, like if you read about programs like Leviathan and some of our like, you know, intelligence programs to like read massive amounts of email and social media stuff, it's good. I do think Israel is probably, there's a really good argument they are the best at cyber warfare of anyone else in the world in a lot of different specific ways. I don't know if you've ever read about Stuxnet, but holy crap, that's a cool story. So they do have a lot of technologies that we really depend on and we benefit from that relationship with.
Well, and just to nerd out a little bit, you have to understand that, or at least, you know, my brother, he's worked in the defense industry. He's working in aerospace right now. I had a lot of friends who worked in defense and intel and all that kind of stuff. Like, people will achieve individual capacities that are mind-blowing, but especially when it comes to secret programs, oftentimes those abilities will be siloed to a specific, you know, like organization. Like, for instance, the CIA was the first person to put a missile on a drone, and they used it in 2001 in Afghanistan. That wasn't even thought of up until that time, right? Then, like you were talking about Israel's ability to do cyber warfare in a unique and interesting way. I forget the exact details of it, but obviously they were able to destroy the Iranian uranium enrichment facility through basically getting past a bunch of what was thought of as unbreachable firewalls in order to destroy their centrifuges. So that might be a unique capacity that the Israelis have, but the United States doesn't have, or that might be a unique capacity that in a certain branch of the Israeli military has, but another branch doesn't. And so putting these feelers out and these political pressures to governmental representatives to get these specialized institutions to talk to each other, to build a capacity that actually gets the hostages home, that's not money poorly spent if you actually care about Israeli hostages. Even if it's a long shot. I frankly, sometimes I wish that the United States gave a shit about its citizens as much as Israel apparently cares about these hostages. So
that's right.
Yeah. So anyways, I could rant for another 20 minutes, but I'll spare everyone.
I loved it, but we'll keep going.
Okay. Then actually, last side comment. I think that Candace Owens' comments about Jewish power and Zionist power in DC government makes more sense if you take a Christian theocracy vibe on it, where you think that Christians should be in power of American governance because historically the United States is a Christian country. And so Jews are not a peer with which to share power. They are a foreign influence that is co-opting the levers of power of what should be a predominantly Christian run affair. And so that kind of like, it's almost like an anti-liberal Christian nationalist perspective that Zionism is an infiltration, not a peer motivation.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's a really charitable view. I think I would need to look.
I might be giving her too much credit.
No, I would love to look at her comments and see if she has a kind of similar vibe when it comes to, you know, Islam or other you know, religions, but I think that could be her motivation and where she's coming from. But you know, all the same, I do think reasonable people of goodwill can look at her comments and, you know, come to the conclusion that she's anti-Semitic. I mean, certainly in her debate with Destiny, she said some unhinged stuff, and it's really not surprising to me that she got fired.
even if you didn't want to say anti-Semitic, you at minimum could say that she's fast, loose, spicy, aggressive, ill-informed, and probably bad for the brand, even if you didn't want to say anti-Semitic. But let's see what our buddy Cenk has to say.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so you're right, of course. I mean, I've been in dozens of debates on this issue, and bad faith actors like Rabbi Shmuley and Alan Dershowitz, I say hi and they're like, anti-Semite, right? So are there individuals who act from bad faith? Of course, right? But people like Candace Owens are toxic to the cause of helping Palestinians and getting peace for Palestinians and Israelis, okay? And ending the occupation, ending the bombing. They're toxic to all that because they do not make an incredibly important distinction, one that is logical, moral, and factual, which is, we're not talking about Jews here. We're not talking about the Jews. We're not talking about DC Jews. We're not talking about Pittsburgh Jews. We're not talking about Santa Fe Jews, okay? We're talking about the right-wing government of Israel. And it's that specific because other governments in Israel have made peace deals. They have made a peace deal with Egypt, that's fantastic. If there was a peace deal today and we ended the occupation and you had 2 states and Palestine was free, terrific. Everybody go back to Israel and et cetera, on Israel, let alone Jewish people, et cetera. But when you start getting into this, it's the good Jews and the bad Jews. Now look, guys, sometimes people will say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you attacking Jewish people? Are you nuts? For example, some of the best fighters for the Palestinian cause in America are Jewish. So Bernie Sanders, historically, is the first person who's ever brought it up in a presidential debate stage and has always treated Palestinians with decency. And you might have disagreed around the edges in the beginning, but he's right now the senator that's pushing hardest for peace and for Palestinian rights, et cetera. And I can go on and on. There's a giant list, let alone Jewish Voices for Peace, et cetera. But when you start getting into, so when people point that out, including me, we're just saying like, obviously it's not the Jews, right? Apparently that's not so obvious to some people, but when she says, now remember guys, there are good Jews and bad Jews. And the ones that disagree with me are the bad Jews. And they're the ones that are controlling everything. Now it doesn't get any more anti-Semitic trope than that. No, everybody has their different point of view and they come at it from their own perspective.
Sorry if I'm letting him run for a bit, but so far it just seems like he said like, he's kind of concurred with the previous commentator, and then he just made the point that while not saying that he wants to play into the good Jews and bad Jews trope, he wants to acknowledge that there's a diversity of Jewish opinion that is even extremely helpful from a progressive pro-Palestinian lens. And so even, making this dynamic of the neutral Jew being the good Jew and the aggressively Zionist Jew being the bad Jew, even that is not representative of reality. So far, that's my only takeaway. Do you have any other takeaways?
That's Cenk's opinion, and one of the things, I personally, he's my friend, and I'm always going to go to bat for my friend, and that may cloud my judgment. I think Cenk is one of the very best pro-Palestinian voices that's out there because his criticism is consistently about Israel's foreign policy and the actions that the civilians are taking the brunt of, which is true, right? There are 1.4 million refugees right now. Many of them are starving in Rafah. There is not enough food coming in, though that situation is getting better. And Cenk keeps it laser focused on that and doesn't lapse into these anti-Semitic tropes. And I think he's much stronger for it. So, Candace Owens, if you want to make many of these points going forward, just watch how my friend Cenk does it, and maybe you won't get fired from your next job. That's my suggestion.
Well, and to be honest, in Candace's defense, I know that we're having a very low bar right here, but I think that an actual anti-Semitic National Socialist would say, all Jews, even the neutral Jews, are perpetuating through social consciousness this attempt to eliminate the white race or subvert Christian authoritarianism or whatever. Whereas at least Candace Owens has made a distinguishing between the neutral good Jew and I'm being sarcastic here. She's still being very aggressive and loose with the language while not understanding the definitions of the words that she's using. So
very broad brush.
But let's continue, see if we can get some more insights.
And they're trying to fight for their own rights and their own beliefs, et cetera. And we get into the situation that we're in. So, and she's so nonsensical that I'm amazed that people keep up. Look, if she said, hey, I'm a right winger, I don't really care about the Palestinians, but I just don't want to send any money abroad. Okay, well, that's an ideological position, and it's got nothing to do with race or ethnicity or religion or whatever. I don't agree with that as a blanket statement, but okay, that I could accept that. Or she says, I don't, I want to get to peace, or hey, I want something good for the Palestinians. I'll take it. That's fantastic. But when she says, I'm for this position, and I'm against the DC Jews, that's crazy. That's nuts. And now that I've said it so many times too, because it's so insane, sounds like a basketball team. Anyway, so look, she said they're Marxists. What? Like, I don't understand if the right wing understands words. Most of the supporters of the right wing government of Israel are right wingers. They're not Marxists. And you could have different issues with Marxists, but Marxists are generally in favor of peace. They're not in favor of occupation and imperialism or I mean, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. To say that they're Marxists on top of the anti-Semitism and all that stuff is lunacy.
Yeah, so this actually cuts to one of the issues I was describing. If Candace Owens, like, I still think that she could be getting called anti-Semitic while doing what I'm describing, but I would respect what I'm describing as at least coherent. So if she wanted to say that Zionism is a specific philosophy that says that the Jewish people of the world are entitled to a state in the Jewish homeland based off of their history, Israel is the best representation and avatar of that. As a result, because there's a large population of Jews within the United States, they should help climb the rungs of power and influence in media and all that kind of stuff in order to support the Israeli state. And I think that the balance of power between America's interest and Israel has favored Israel too much. Israel is not a peer in the Middle East and North Africa. That is a country that the United States is balancing its interests with. It is preeminent amongst all Middle Eastern and North African countries, and I would like to see a restoring of the balance of our considerations of foreign powers. That would be coherent. It would still probably be approximately the same position. It would still have the same policy goals, but you wouldn't be doing this weird. And then also, like, I think she's playing into tropes that she doesn't even fully understand.
I agree.
In Russia, like, the reason why the National Socialists of Germany went after the Marxist Party in Germany so hard is because they saw that the socialist, or a healthy chunk, at least this is their internal narrative, a healthy chunk of the socialists who instigated the violence in Russia were Jewish, and therefore they couldn't trust the Jews of Germany because they were going to instigate a Marxist socialist revolution inside Germany. Therefore, we have to cut them off before they're able to instigate their worldview here. So by her calling the DC Jews Marxist, she's making an argument that's reminiscent to 1930s Germany. And frankly, I don't give her enough credit to even know that history to know that she's dog whistling about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the exact same thing, right? Like, there's a good way to make the argument, there's a bad one. She's not, because she doesn't know enough. I think that's dead on. So
yeah, it's like, I would prefer it if you were bigoted, but you were at least well informed.
This is the question we're not answering.
Can you step up your bigotry? Like, can you make it better?
Why do you think she's so stupid to be doing this when Ben Shapiro is her boss? Like, this is like,
I think she has a contrarian instinct. I think she does. I think a lot of really popular right-wingers have a contrarian instinct where if you tell them not to touch the stove, they're going to say, there's something good underneath the stove. I'm going to touch it. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be good for everyone. And I think that's literally it. People are probably in her ear where they're like, hey, you can't be saying that wild shit about Israel and Zionism. Your boss is literally a Jewish Zionist. You're going to get in trouble. And she's like, there's got to be something nice under that hot stove. I'm going to touch it.
I don't know. I think that's true. I also think it comes back to, she's so institutionally suspicious. And I think this experience she had as a young girl, where someone who is an elected official in the Democratic Party her son was harassing her and she couldn't get justice for like basic like extreme racism. Go read the story. Like she was 100% in the right there, and power coalesced to protect power and screwed her over as a very young black woman, right? I think that fundamentally broke her brain. I think it gave her that contrarian streak that you're talking about. And I also think it made her hyper suspicious of everything around her in a way that really clouds her analysis.
I am okay with being contrarian and being skeptical. As a matter of fact, I think that contrarianism and skepticism can actually lead you to asking important and interesting questions that can reveal a deeper truth. But what I don't like is like reflexive contrarianism, where if somebody is giving you a reasonable answer, it's still wrong because they're a part of a faction that you don't like. And that's what I see a lot on the right, is that if somebody gives them a reasonable explanation for their suspicions of something being fishy, they will still reject the reasonable suspicion or the reasonable explanation because it's not interesting enough. It's not convoluted enough. It's not maniacal enough. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
I see Rob Noor do this a lot. And, you know, like when he talks about January 6th, it's always like he's got some secret knowledge that explains like the hidden truth of what is going on there. And I understand how it is comforting to believe that there's like a secret cabal behind all the poly crisis we have going on right now. I understand the allure of it, but and I think it gives people a sense of control, but I don't think it leads to better analysis. And I think it's the exact same brainworms that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I did get a dono from Big Hoth 98. They'll say, I'll admit total vibes based, but I feel like some on the left would be cheering for this if it was their side saying it, but now it's the worst thing known to man. No, Big Hoth, we spent a substantive amount of time, and after Brianna left, a healthy amount of profanity on Hassan Piker just a few weeks ago. And the reason being is because while I'm sure that Hassan would be able to use his progressive bona fides to ward off any criticism of bigotry, he still effectively tried to dismiss the evidence that was available for sexual assault and murder on 10/7. So I would argue that form of like casual stupidity is almost more, I don't want to say more damaging. I would say it's as toxic and as damaging as what I'm criticizing Candace Owens of. So yeah, there's plenty of stupid people on the left as well, of course.
Are you suggesting, Connor, that the left is not perfect and pure, and that we use a lot of the same tactics we criticize the right for? Because I can't.
Not only am I suggesting that, I'll take it a step further, and I'll say that 10% of like the United States that identifies as hardcore left is actually like delusionally detached from reality, absolute psychopaths. And the main reason why they can't achieve as much damage as the far right can is because they're bed blobs who would rather tweet than actually go commit an act of terrorism. So, you know, say what you want about the fringe right, but they'll actually get out of bed in order to go harm the world.
I don't know if you read my Twitter. I am so done with these fucking communist pieces of shit. I've genuinely tried to work with TSA. I've tried to take a breath and go, Brianna, you know, they're kids, they're young, they'll grow out of this. But I am at the point where I've had enough. These are people that fundamentally hate our country, and they want to set everything around them on fire, and they're lazy and they're dumb as hell. I'm so done with them.
But this goes back to the contrarian streak on touching the stove too. Like there's an element of me, I'm very happy to see older people, even Anna Kasparian, who's also on the Young Turks. She was talking about how bail reform had created a situation in which people who were disposing of a body were released, even though they had been hacking apart a body. And she was like, listen, if this is what the left is all about, I'm no longer labeling myself left. I don't think you need to go that far. You can still have left-wing instincts on education, healthcare, living wages, racial justice, et cetera, while not literally condoning releasing suspected murderers, right? And so I think that we just need to let some of the extremists touch the stove. We just need to let them do it. And so in a decade and a half, maybe you'll be an idiot in your basement still touching stoves digitally, or you'll grow up and you'll become a functioning member of society. And I will pray for the latter.
So so Connor, tell me truthfully, in the last 4 years, because your side lost their mind, like in the extreme way, like, sorry to MAGA people if you're watching it, this is my appraisal, before mine did. And I think like the left was just like 5 or 6 years behind y'all. Like in the last few years, like, did you reach a point? Like this is what happened to me. Like the left would say crazier and crazier things, and I'd be like, I just don't want to pick that fight. I don't want to piss him off. I'll just go along with it, right? Like, and I just kept doing that time and time and time again. I remember when I was running for Congress, I was like, you know what? Cops should be paid like the professionals that they are. This was before Black Lives Matter, and going like, we need to look at increasing police funding. And the reason I felt that way is because I'd spent so much time going around, looking at town budgets, meeting actual police officers, understanding like the staffing concerns.
Yeah, you touched too much grass.
That's right. And it changed my opinion on that. And the left screamed and screamed and screamed at me until I deleted my tweet. I was like, I just don't need the headache.
Yeah.
And we put off that fight so long that something has like festered.
Did you really
that
lucky
on your side?
Yeah. Yes, I was very, very, very lucky that my awakening happened relatively early. So there was an element even for me for 2015, 2016. Trump said some things that were disqualifying for me personally, mostly about like military affairs, where I was like, even if I can't vote for Clinton, physically can't. Like I would spontaneously burst into flames. However, I can't vote for Trump because he said XYZ stupid thing. As a result, I just don't think he's a competent commander in chief. Can't do it. So I didn't. But there was still like an element of enjoying the post of a lot of people being pissed off about Trump, but it started being less and less funny as policies started getting implemented that actually like hurt and killed people. And so as a result, over the course of like 2 years of the Trump presidency, I was like, well, the economy's pretty good. He's hurt and killed a few people. He's fucked up this, he's fucked up that. Maybe on the whole, we'll survive this. Maybe he really is playing 4D chess. But what happened to me that made me really distance myself from the fringe right was I was a part of a Jordan Peterson Facebook group back when Jordan Peterson was still eating vegetables, hopefully. And I really liked the shit posting. I liked the joking racism. I liked the joking sexism. I liked the Jungian mythology. I liked the self-improvement. But what happened was, I think it was Charlottesville, actually. Charlottesville happened, and there were, I would say, half of the Facebook group that backed off, and they said, hey, when we were being racist or sexist or whatever, we were mostly joking, and we don't actually want to murder people. And another half of the group was like, no, we're dead serious. Actually, blacks and brown people are an existential threat to the United States of America, and it's going to take violence to implement our worldview. So either get on board with us or you're not a part of us anymore. And I was like, I'm not a part of you. I was never a part of you. Like I was, when I said something up about that was racist, I was actually joking. It wasn't a joke in order to cover up like fucked up like actual bias where I hated people. I was actually joking. And so anyways, I know that story was long, but that awakening made me a lot more aware of when my fringe wasn't joking. And so as a result, I've been awake to that very aggressively for a long time.
I think what's happened to me is after, October 7th, it's not that I ever thought that the left was joking, so to say, about like American anti-interventionism. Like there's a really damn good argument about, obviously the Iraq war was a mistake. Obviously Afghanistan may have started off for good reasons, but was terribly mismanaged. You know, like there's a lot of foreign adventurism that obviously we don't need to go on, right? And so I would hear stuff that was a little bit crazy. I'd be like, well, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and this is really about, you know, the civilians that got killed in the Iraq War that we've never had a conversation about. What I have seen, it's very jarring to literally see my own side literally cheering for the terrorists. Literally, they are on the side of Hamas. Literally, they are on the side of Hezbollah. Like, so, like seeing a non-trivial part of my side who believes in death to the United States and wants us and our allies hurt, that's really eye-opening to me. And so my message to anyone out there, just to bring it back to Anna Kasparian, and her message there is, look, this progressivism in this form is a sinking ship. I fully believe that. Like, it is getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and you're never going to be able to ignore all the crazy stuff and get to the good policy stuff that you agree with. So my message to you is like, look, go talk to Connor. Connor believes in universal health care, at least better health care for working class people like I do. And Connor is a rational human being. So my theory for where politics needs to go is talking to more people like you, and you talk to me, and we go, hey, we're not going to agree on trans kids, but let's see what we can get done on healthcare together, and just the fringes. That's where I think we should go.
I was thinking about this. We should both remember this for after stream, but what I wanted to do was actually create an Excel spreadsheet in Google Drive and write down like the freak left and freak right political positions that we think are too far, because that was one of the things that Jordan Peterson did. Is he said like, oh, it's really easy to identify when the right goes too far. It's when you start talking about race essentialism and authoritarian violence and all that kind of stuff, but we don't know how to talk about what's too far on the left. And so I think that we've hit such a hyperbolic extreme recently, particularly with 10-7 and the aftermath, that we do have those examples. And so I think that we need to actively write these things down, and then we borderline need to create a new coalition of like centroids and normies who are interested in like a productive, healthy, happy society that actually works for a majority of the American people. And it's a tall order, because I think being hyperbolic, particularly in the age of digital media, makes you more attractive for more people to watch. But I think that it's a necessary project, even if it's less sexy than just talking about the DC Jews.
I don't know if it is less sexy. I think that most people are exhausted. I really do. And you have to have seen this canvassing, just how most people are normal, and they may want to look at
so
the
much grass touching. It was painful. I need to, I was so white pilled from canvassing. And by the way, like there were plenty of like wildly progressive people that I spent the weekend arguing with on policy. But I have to say that I have forgiven and will forgive Destiny a healthy chunk of interpersonal drama and silliness with the way that he manages his personal affairs, because he was able to bring together 300 to 400 young people to touch grass and work towards a productive goal. That is so mind-bogglingly huge to be able to achieve that compared to what everybody else is doing, that he actually earned a lot of latitude in my mind.
I fully agree with that, obviously.
So he can keep dating 25-year-olds. I won't complain. It's fine.
But get rid, like, I really mean this, fellow progressives, like, get off the train. They're going to crazy town. They're becoming left-wing MAGA. Like you can jump off now, or you can jump off like when they start having Hamas rallies in downtown Boston. But like they're going somewhere you don't want to go. So if you have any integrity, or if you really care about this country, like, I think it's time for us to like start working together and leave the crazies to their fate. That's how
let's do it. Let's start working on it, which we will do by continuing to react Andy to this segment. So let's see if we can get through the first like 15-minute segment. We're bad about blabbing, but we have decent audience numbers, so I'm not going to complain.
And look, this is not that complicated. She's the person who supported Kanye West even after Kanye West said complimentary things about Hitler. So this is not a good person to help the cause of peace for both sides.
Yeah, I just really get a kick out of Candace Owens. She's so easy to make fun of because she is a profoundly boring person. She's so boring.
I don't agree.
Everything bores her. You know, everything's stupid, everything's immoral, everything's too much, nothing's good enough. You know, whether it be she talking about people relationships and how their relationships should be and what a man should be and how women should be. And she has whole segments where she talks about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And it's like, the older she gets, I just turned 32. She can't be that much older than me. We're like 35, 36 or something. She just getting more and more bitter and more boring. Because what else is she going to do? Is she going to shift to the left? No, I mean, she might come out with some liberal, comments here and there, but like people won't really take it seriously. It might get some attention. Like she's totally boxed in. She has nowhere else to go. I mean, maybe people will still be listening to her do this crap in 10, 15 years. Maybe not. I don't know. But like, she's just, again, every time I see her, I just think, wow, you're so boring. And I don't envy anything about you. I don't envy anything about the people in your life. And who really respects you, who's worth a damn at the end of the day? She's just a joke. Like
that's hardcore.
I have no respect for her, and I have no problem saying that. Like I really don't.
I don't agree.
You make a really good point there, Jackson,
really?
because it's not even just.
Yeah. So here's the thing. That this is a quote. It's going to be very stick up my own ass. But the Eleanor Roosevelt of all people, she said that small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, and then great minds talk about ideas. And I do think that this is kind of like, you're sniffing your own farts about how smart you are. But I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that people like drama. Even I like drama. I would say 70% of my consumptive habits on YouTube are drama. I would also say that the culture war, I don't want to watch two policy nerds talk about marginal tax rates. I want to hear about how Marjorie Taylor Greene's son vandalized a church, or by the way, that could be Lauren Boebert, I forget. But anyways, the point being, like, I want to hear about the insane congressman whose son turned out to be like a felon, right? That's the news story that I'm going to click on. And it's because it's sensational and aggressive and hyperbolic and weird that I'm going to do it. So basically, like, I understand that might be boring to you because you have a mature palate in the stuff that you want to consume. And I couldn't watch Candace Owens because I think she's a idiot who doesn't know what she's talking about. That doesn't mean that a culture war segment about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift didn't do numbers. I almost guarantee you it did numbers.
Okay, I hear where you're coming from. I guess. So, did you watch the Destiny Jordan Peterson debate?
Not yet, but I'm looking forward. If we can do that on Wednesday or Thursday, I would love to do that with you because I think I can steel man Jordan Peterson's insanity.
That sounds great. So, yes. What I think is when I listen to Jordan Peterson talk, he says stuff and I don't agree with it, but he is arguing positions in an interesting way that makes me recheck my assumptions, right? They're crazy, but it's like a coherent thought that I can like wade my way through and at least consider it. Exact same thing with the Norm Finkelstein thing with the 5-hour IP debate, right? When I listen to Candace Owens talk, I just get conspiracy theories, a lot of the left, like just sub in the word Hitler for the
or
left
Marxist,
or Marxist, and you've got it. It doesn't go deeper. And yeah, it is entertaining because she's a good speaker, but I don't I watch media people I disagree with to recheck my assumptions and make sure my opinions are correct. I can't do that with her because there doesn't feel like there's any substance. Do you know what I mean?
I do, but what I think that we have to realize as a consumer block, and especially in order to get to algorithmic relevance, is the fact that the average, talking about ideas and drama and stupid and using buzzwords that nobody's going to Google and not doing research, if you can be hyperbolic, it's just going to get you attention. I have no respect for Fresh and Fit. They are wildly successful. I have
Myron's got shitloads of talent. I mean, he's really good. Yeah.
Well, see, that's interesting to me because I would never check it out because I've heard him and his co-host say some wildly stupid shit. And I was like, I would never watch these mother in a million years. So like that's where for me, like you got to have something, right? Whereas I think like a healthy chunk of people, they do want their perspectives repeated back to them. It's what they want. Or they want somebody who's so aggressively against them that they enjoy the fight. That's it. So you either have to be so wildly different from them that they enjoy hate watching you, or you have to be so similar that you are their voice. And I think that's what a lot of people want.
Yeah, no, I think that's dead on. Also,
I want to make a point. I don't like President Sunday. I don't think that I've made that unclear in any uncertain terms on any platform. I don't like people who show up to debates, leave halfway through, act like they're better than everybody else, et cetera, et cetera. It rubs me wrong. I don't like it. However, and I also criticize the fact that he doesn't seem to like anybody. You know, he criticizes Vosh, he criticizes Keffels, he criticizes this person, that person, whatever. The dude had...
He's had some words for me.
Erudite. He has nothing positive to say about anybody ever. I think the only person that I've ever heard him compliment is Eudaimonia, who is Shoe on Head's Catholic boyfriend. That's the only person that I've heard him speak positively about. And so as a result, I'm like, who would want to get sucked into this vortex of negativity? And then I saw him release a talking segment against somebody I don't like. I forget who it was, but I watched it and it was funny. It was funny as because he's just like dryly, smugly ripping apart this person's arguments and calling them an idiot the entire time. And I was like, I will not watch Sunday on principle, but I understand the people who are entertained. But constant negativity is not going to be something that actually creates something new. And and so that's where I think if he doesn't create something new, then I think he's failing in part of his project.
So there was this thing with Sunday one time, and I forget who it was. He was talking to Wick, and Wick like insulted him or something like that. And he goes like, "Very well, let it begin." And it was so dramatic and over the top that I'm sitting there going like, Sunday is funny. Like, he's a bastard, but the guy like has comedic timing. And he's so over the top. Like, he's definitely entertaining. If he went and got therapy to stop blowing up his relationship with everyone in his life, he would probably get a much bigger audience. But the truth is, like, in my opinion, he shows a lot of signs that make me personally have the opinion that he's an alcoholic. And he seems to just really have unchecked rage, particularly at women, that he cannot keep in check. So it's really sad that this person's like unchecked personality disorder is going to get in the way of him having a career. I mean, look at you, Connor. You entered a space that's overwhelmingly like left wing. Let's just be honest. And you have a different point of view, but you're friendly. Like, everyone in this space likes you. I don't care who you talk to in this space; they like you. That's a real skill, and it's what's going to blow up Sunday.
So he, to his credit, he convincingly choked on an apple, slammed his head into his desk, and then the screen went black. And I actually it was so cathartic for me to think that he had died on stream that I was like, oh my God, I hope that he had died. But then, and I said that a few times, and I was frustrated because he wasn't engaging in the conversation. But what I realized was, it was funnier as a bit. Like, him choking on an apple and convincingly slamming his head onto the desk and then going black. It takes, creativity and, a morbid sense of humor in order to do that aggressively and then pull it off. And so, as much as I dislike and will continue to dislike the man, I respect at least that 5 seconds took creativity, humor, commitment to the bit, physical comedy. It involves some level of talent. So yeah, I hope, my earnest hope is that he finds some people that he likes, that he can like for prolonged periods of time. I hope that he engages in conversations that challenge his perspectives in order to develop new perspectives. I hope that he creates a positive aspect to his content that develops a positive audience. And I hope that succeeds more than the constant hatred for other people. Although, if he makes a funny video about somebody I hate, then I'll watch it. So, you know, it is what it is.
Fair enough.
But I know you have a heart out in about
20 minutes. I do. I'm doing national media, so.
Yeah, and I want to give you some time to like recoup, so we're not totally fried. So I would say let's run for another like 18, and then if you're okay with an out at a hard 5 p.m. EST, then we'll do that. Perfect. So let's see if we can wrap up one 15-minute clip. All right,
we'll do our best.
Yeah.
Candace Owens, so many of the Daily Wire hosts, we've seen them have the shift where instead of making, a lot of long form political content, so much of what they put out now is just them reacting to TikToks and making fun of videos of, Gen Z kids on TikTok, and like Ben Shapiro. Now it's a joke that people try to make insane TikToks that, is obviously not things they actually believe or how they actually behave, just to see if he'll react to it on their show, if he'll take the bait, because that has become so much of the content that they're producing.
Yeah.
Sad.
That is true about them. Like, really just, they don't talk about politics that much, and the right wing more so focuses on culture wars, but they're really just cultural commentators. They are who's all up in everybody's business. That's what they do.
Yeah,
but if that gets them money, time, and attention, then who cares?
I'm so bad at this, and this will be a boomer moment. But Matisyahu, okay, and so apparently they got their a couple of shows canceled in Arizona because people didn't want to work. They claim because. Either because they were Jewish or they supported Israel. Don't do that. That's crazy. Now we're gonna all cancel each other and be internally divided in America. Don't ever do it based on ethnicity, religion, or race. I don't care. No, don't ever do that. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm actually gonna end it here and move into the next clip. For me, that's too sober of a take. It's not going to work. And then also I feel like them saying that the conservative media has shifted to culture warriors and short form reaction content goes back to what I was saying, where they're going for low hanging fruit because it gets money, time, and attention. And if you get money, time, and attention in an audience and you can lead them somewhere, either financially or politically, then you're doing your job as a political pundit. So I don't think that, criticizing the depth of content is necessarily going to get anybody anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, this is a big right-wing media thing. I'm sure the left does it too, but like the Sweet Baby Inc. thing, it's hard for me not to log into YouTube, look at my algo, and understand. Yeah, some of this is probably about some people that have genuine thoughts about disclosure and, are upset about, writing in video games. A lot of it is rage bait for SEO optimization too. So I think there's a lot of truth in that.
True. So I'm not going to watch these clips because I think it'll be a waste of time. I actually want to get into the Destiny conversation, see if there's anything productive there. But this was a 40-second clip. We're not going to watch it. I'm just going to summarize it. Candace Owens basically says that she knows that she's taken a professional risk by being critical of Israel and Zionism. And then there's another clip where she actually says that I'll see you for tomorrow's segment or whatever. And people believe that this is evidence that she did not know that she was going to be dismissed. She probably suspected that she was going to be dismissed, but she didn't know because her last interview on the Daily Wire, or last show on the Daily Wire, she was saying she was going to be back the following day. So obviously her contract was up. She was a little bit too edgy, too spicy for Ben Shapiro. And then one of the things that she did recently was she actually went into, a friend of the stream, Destiny's apartment. He lives down in Miami. She was going to do Fresh and Fit. And so she stopped by Destiny's apartment in order to bullshit and debate. I actually haven't seen it because, again, I don't like her as a person.
Oh, it's so crazy. Oh,
if we can get into a few memes before you go, I would love that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
the most literate.
You think people that graduate with college degrees can't read well?
Yeah, what I'm telling you is yes. That's what I'm telling you. They're not the most literate.
What would I look up to verify that if I wanted to see like?
You got to do the research in your own time.
I have done the research.
Like, I'm happy to.
True.
What do you mean it's not true? And I'm gonna tell you.
Okay, let me finish my thing real quick. Hold on, I'm sorry,
explain.
because I've done a lot of research on college degrees, and a lot of research on education, and every single thing that you're saying sounds really good on like a culture war perspective. But when you look at an actual economic perspective, when you look at actual firms that hire people, and when you look at the actual median wages given to people that even have some college education, all of it
is me going to school.
All of it, that's great for you, but for the average American, that's just not true. None of these numbers are found on average. You will never find data that supports the idea that high school earners on average are out-earning college degree earners.
Every single person that I went to school with is not using the degrees that they paid for.
What did you go to college for?
Journalism.
Isn't that what you're doing right now?
What do you mean? You're acting like you're a college dorm kid.
Yeah, and your catty insults towards people online make you seem like a high school mean girl. What are you doing here? What's going on?
I just did PBD, Patrick Bet-David. They know you over there, right? Are you laughing?
Maybe. I know. I'm good. Do you know Adam over there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just asked Adam. He was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, I know Adam. Me and Adam are cool. I'm not as much sure about the PBD guy. I'm pretty. I'm a pretty far left guy, and I disagree with a lot of stuff they say in a pretty crazy way.
They got both on that show. That's why it's so great. I just did something with Chris Cuomo. He couldn't be further left. That's what I just did.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, but when they bring on left guys, it's usually to roast the fuck out of them. So.
No, that's not what happened at all.
Oh, that might not have happened this time. That's what I've seen. When I had Anthony Weiner on, it was that. When I've seen other left-leaning guys go on, it's usually like a rake him over the coals.
Well, one of them is on the left, right?
Which guy?
So, I really thought that Adam just said I've never voted for a Republican, but I might vote Republican.
I think Adam is fair.
Yeah.
I think Adam is fair generally from what I've seen, but he's like center at best. And I'm not even like a communist type guy, but I mean like Adam is like pretty center. Like he's like a.
All right, I got to make an aesthetic comment. I like the goatee. I like it. I know that he has like a patch issue over here or whatever, but I think it makes him look like an evil twin to himself, and he's already an evil twin. So I think it actually matches his aesthetic really well. Where like you would walk in. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Community, but like they have like an evil twin episode where like Troy and Abed and all those people, they all have goatees and shit. Like yeah, I think it's perfect. But
I love it. I love it. Okay. I think it's a good look.
I think he's growing the beard back in again, but I like the goatee. All right, sorry, just had to make the aesthetic comment. We'll continue.
I just don't think he's behind all the Trump stuff.
But why laugh if I'm like I just went Patrick Bet-David? It's like haha, like what's that?
Oh, sorry. In my world, there's a lot. There's always like a lot of drama on people hitting each other behind. So I just laugh because it's funny because I'm not sure if those guys hate me or not. I've been on their show once. They seem like cool people, but the Patrick guy has said kind of weird things about me or my fan base before, so it's kind of like a funny it's just a funny thing. There wasn't anything deeper to that, I promise.
Okay. No, I was just curious. I was like, because you would go on a platform with someone on the right, presumably.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because you said because I'm on the left when I asked you, and I was like, what does that mean? Like, why we need more conversations. It doesn't need to be I'm on the left, I'm on the right. It's like, what do you actually think? You know, what do you actually believe?
Sure, I agree for sure. Yeah. What are you talking about mainly over the past week or two? What's the stuff that's captured your attention, your eyes the most?
Man, I talk about everything on my show. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest topic for me has been the Diddy lawsuit. It's the craziest thing that's come out, I think, since Jeffrey Epstein. And it's definitely significant because a lot of the work that I do is talking about or I guess really asking the question is what's happened to black culture? Because this is not the black culture that I grew up with. And the Diddy lawsuit potentially answers a lot of those questions. So
do you say where you grew up?
I was born in White Plains, New York, and I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay. What can you catch us up on the P. Diddy lawsuit?
It gets like spicier about 10 minutes.
Are you kidding?
My mind has been, I've done Israel Palestine for the last 4 years or 4 months, and then like a whole bunch of.
Yo, I don't know about you, but just for me, like people in the Northeastern Corridor or whatever, I just feel like there's some cultural strife in the South, right? I think you could attest to that with your background. Yes. And I think that there's also like some issues in the Northeast too. I mean, obviously like Baltimore is like a really fucked up city. There's plenty of like fucked up cities in the Northeast, but I think that you hit like a certain income bracket where you're so insulated from the problems of like broader society that your race no longer matters. Now, maybe I would super love to hear like Candace Owens's like lore, like what her parents did for work, you know, what was her upbringing like, all that kind of stuff. But when I hear Connecticut, I am thinking like white wood, 100-year-old house,
Yes.
manicured lawn.
Frank is from Connecticut.
system.
I can confirm this. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So for me, when I hear like, oh, I grew up here, but then I moved here or whatever, I'm kind of hearing like my parent, even if we started out rough, we made enough money to make it to the nice side of town. And so then I have to start questioning your credentials of like, what kind of difficulty did you have as a person in order to qualify you to comment on? So for instance, she said, this is not the black culture that I was raised with. Well, what was the black culture that you were raised with? I would be skeptical and curious about that. I'm pausing a little bit too early, but let's see if they get into something.
Different ways of viewing this. And I feel like you fall more to one side, and I'll go my side, and then we can kind of see if we can iron out or figure where we are at, I guess, in the middle here. I feel like when you look at the evolution of, when we say like degenerate black culture or degenerate black music, I think we're generally talking about like the beginning of hip hop and rap, and then kind of the evolution of that going forward, coming away from like the R&B singers and everybody like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or whatever, right?
Yeah. But hip hop isn't always filth. But yeah, I get your point.
But that seems like
we're
the general.
generalizing.
It feels like when I look at music, or if I look at music that people create, oftentimes the music is a reflection of their circumstances. And you can see, especially as America and the black communities became more conscientious maybe of the ghettos that they'd been kind of pushed into, or the policing situations that they'd had to be a part of, or drugs destroying their communities, et cetera, et cetera. And then those people turning to crime, that you also see the music and the art kind of reflect those conditions. And then those pieces of art that get created, especially the music, end up being like worldwide popular. Like the most popular genre of music in the world is like hip hop and rap. So when I look at people pushing certain stuff today, I'm like, okay, well, we got two really big, in my opinion, I went to school for music, I don't know if you talk about the saxophone or whatever. So we had two really big contributions to the world of music from America. One was jazz, that came basically from the black community, and then the second was like rap and hip hop. These forms of music become popular. People see that it's popular. They want to get involved. Obviously, the money men, the people on top, they want to kind of continue to push this because it's popular, and everybody around the world consumes it. I feel like there are a lot of market forces at work that kind of perpetuate this and keep this happening. And that feels pretty satisfying to me to explain what's going on. So when we ask, like, why is it a woman twerking with somebody's face in her butt cheeks? Because, well, for whatever reason, that's like what the worldwide culture seems to want to see right now. And then on the other side, it feels like from people, I don't want to just say conservatives, but I would say broadly speaking, I guess I'll say on your side in general, it feels like there's this idea that there's this much more intentional or like malevolent force working behind the scenes.
Yes, there is. And so I'm going to push back on what you're suggesting here. You're
suggesting
this reflects the community, and there's
Candace, tread carefully. All right, I'm f***ing around. I'm f***ing around. But she was just talking about the DC Jews earlier. And it's a stereotype that record label owners are sometimes Jewish. And we're talking about P. Diddy, who, for those of you who don't know, what I've heard from the outside, only tangentially paying attention to the story, he became very rich and very successful. He had a lot of money and a lot of power. He would throw orgies at his house that involved transgender folk, bisexual folk, homosexual folk. Yes.
Really?
And they were all banging the shit out of each other. He would bring in young men who were not ready for that level of deviancy and then try to pressure them into acts that they might be uncomfortable with the implied threat of violence, money, power, and access. That's what I heard. So I'm not saying that's 100% accurate. I'm saying that only tangentially paying attention to it. That's what I heard. And then... so I'm actually curious about the malevolent forces that she's speaking about. I do think that, like, it is weird that hip hop, even 40 years after the kind of like the, I don't want to say the birth, but like really the popularization of hip hop, it's still about money, drugs, and violence.
Yeah.
I would like to see like a cultural evolution, but is it what people want? Is it trying to propagandize?
Yes.
Is it trying to propagandize people into shitty behavior? Is it both? I don't know. So
a little bit.
Yeah, I want to see Candace's take. Sorry, do you have anything to add?
Can we give some credit here? Like being into trans girls, like what, 30 years ago?
The progressive sexual abuser.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
P. Diddy
was
being abusive
so
with his power and money, he did enjoy transsexual gals and transgender gals.
That's so great.
So while he was being abusive, very progressive.
Wow.
Me. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's go.
Sharing their stories in a way that makes sense. That's completely not true. Okay, WAP does not reflect the circumstances that Black people are living in. You know, singing about your vagina and how hard it's getting pounded is not the circumstance of living in the hood. I come from nothing. It's not that did not make me feel closer to the circumstances that I grew up in. And unfortunately, that's actually what people are telling Black Americans. Like, actually, it's working the other way. You're putting something, you know, your eyes and your ears are the windows to the soul. And you're basically, when you celebrate someone, and I'm using Cardi B here as an example because I think people are probably more familiar with her than they are with Sexy Red. When you put someone like that on the Grammys stage, which is, again, a decision being made. When I was growing up, the best, most talented people were on the Grammy stage. It was something you could watch with your family. And you still had poor people. You still had, you still had poor people. You still had people that were living in the hood. Okay, we didn't need somebody talking about their vagina in order to feel seen. So what you're doing is you're setting the stage for younger girls who aspire to celebrities to say, okay, well, if I mimic that behavior, I too can become famous. What you're actually doing is you're setting the idols that people are going to look up to, and people are going to think this is what I should aspire to.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with Candace Owens. I hope Destiny doesn't defend this.
Oh no!
No, I genuinely feel this way, but I blame Ludacris, right? So 20 years ago, Ludacris, what was it? It was like, I want to lick you from your head to your toe or whatever. And then there's the very graphic descriptions of different body parts. I blame, was it Missy Elliott at the time? Was it my P word, my crack? That was all the beginning of all this. There was like some horrific, graphic, disgusting, depraved hip hop in the early thousands. And I really wish that's like, I was uncomfortable at the time, but I was like 13 or 14 at the time. I was uncomfortable at the time, but I kind of wish that somebody had like come out there and then been like, hey, you know, if the straights start talking about their pussies and their dicks and their assholes, then in 20 years, the gays are going to be talking about graphic depictions of homosexual sex, and you're just going to have to vibe with it, right? And then I wish we could have made a conscious decision. But man, we deserve this. Okay,
if I put on Nelly's "Hot in Here" right now, are you going to be able to rap that with me, or are you not going to know the lyrics because you're too pure?
No, we
get. All right, chat. You see that, chat?
I would.
Rihanna Wu is the cool one here. Connor is uncool. Okay.
I'm sure I could hit the chorus. I don't remember any of the main parts. And yeah.
What about Freak a Leak? PD Pablo.
Again, I could hit the chorus, but I couldn't hit the main parts. Yeah. I could do Bloodhound Gang. You know, the roof is on fire. You know, I could do that. But god damn. Yeah. So anyways, so I agree with Candace. I think that we are setting an example for young people of what we expect out of them as adults. I think celebrities are in some ways the celebrations of what we want our culture to be. I think that when we have a artist perform a song called You're Not the shit, you're not even the fart or whatever, and then there's like a fart sound and that's like part of the song or whatever. I think Al-Qaeda is correct in their hatred of us. Like when that is a popular song, I want to join the jihadists. So maybe we need a little.
I might not get that far.
Maybe we need a little Islamic theocracy in the United States if this is how far we're going to go. So anyways.
What kind of music do you even like? I gotta ask.
Oh, like emo, rock and roll, alternative from the 90s and thousands. You know,
so disappointed. Okay.
Why? Okay. I love all that music.
Give me an example. What is in your top 5 list, please?
Yeah, so there's a ska band called the Supervillains. They're going to be in my, if I had to listen to them for a millennia, I would. My Chemical Romance is going to be up there.
Legit.
Taking Back Sunday has an awesome new song, so it's not as screamo as it was, but they have a song called Tidal Wave that's very new, and I think it's only been released in the past 5 or 10 years, and it's a phenomenal song. Streetlight Manifesto, they're another ska band. I'm trying to think of who I actually listened to. Oh, there's a band called the Thermals. Nobody really knows who they are, but they're basically, they actually took like a bunch of like biblical themes and put it to punk rock, and then but it's all like the hardcore biblical themes, like cities getting sieged and people getting murdered and God, you know, destroying the earth. All that kind of shit. So anyways,
that's great. Just take Exodus and turn it into a rap song. That's actually a really good fit.
No, honestly, if you took Exodus and Revelations and you turned it into a punk rock album, that's what they did, and it's fantastic.
Oh my god.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm a club kid, you know, Chemical Brothers, Prodigy.
Chemical Brothers has some bangers.
Like all that stuff, you know, if it's EDM or dance, I love it. Or filthy rap, the filthiest rap you can imagine. So
yeah, see, and that's my thing is like, I would enjoy hip hop because I would go to the middle school and high school dance and then girls would booty dance with me. However, I did like hear the lyrics, and as a young Christian man, I was like, this is disgusting.
Oh my goodness gracious. This is quite inappropriate.
Thank you, young lady, for this aggressive dance. However, I find these lyrics abhorrent. And that was my vibe. So anyways, all right. But I know
I gotta jump off.
Press.
I gotta jump off.
You got press.
So anyone that's out there can watch me on Twitch today with Leo Laporte. That's gonna be really exciting. But we'll be here next week, y'all. Thanks again, Connor.
All right, beautiful. Text me on Wednesday or Thursday for JBP.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye. Guys, I'm gonna go full cam. So let me explain some things real quick. Thank you to, I think we topped out at like 60, 70. I know for like an unannounced Sunday stream, you know, I wasn't expecting anything huge, so I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. And then what I was gonna say is, thank you for watching. We will try to hit Wednesday or Thursday. Brianna has been doing like ketamine therapy treatments for the past couple of weeks, and that's kind of thrown off our Wednesday, Thursday schedule, but we're going to try get back to Wednesday, Thursday. I desperately want to watch the Jordan Peterson segment, because I think Jordan Peterson versus Destiny really did not enjoy that conversation. I think I saw some spicy moments that Jordan Peterson, a lot of people would aggressively laugh at him, where I feel like I could steel man his arguments, and maybe I'm coping, but I think that you know, I really like JBP. I like 2016 to 2018 JBP. So it would be nice to see whether or not his brain has actually been fried and there's nothing in there anymore, or if he actually has like some hard points, but they're difficult to articulate and people are being uncharitable and rude. I'm sorry I keep doing this, but I have like a mustache hair that's like going into my nose and it's making it itchy. It's very uncomfortable. JBP's daughter became a hoe. I know, that's Ho daughter or America First Son, right? Ho daughter or America First Son. Pick one. So far I have 2 boys, so I don't have to worry about that as much. Obviously I don't want my sons to be, you know, irresponsible young adults, but it's a little bit less scary when you don't have girls. I think having a Ho daughter is scary. You vegan, Mr. Points? No, I'm not. I'm like pescatarian. I eat a shitload of fish. I eat some chicken some of the time, and then I try not to eat red meat as much as possible, but I'll eat it every now and then I try to have my sources of food be substantively carbs and vegetables. Oh, daughter hurts the soul. So true. Well, hey, I do want to be nice to you guys. I want to hang out just for a second. If you have any questions or concerns, then hit me with them now. So do @counterpoints in the chat. I'll scroll to the top. I'll scroll to the bottom. I'll acknowledge all the donos. I will answer any questions or concerns or interesting comments, and then we'll get out of here. There's nothing wrong with loving red meat. I love red meat. I just don't do it 5 times a week because I want to live to be in my 80s. So, you know, I think like 82, 84. If I can still do a couple of push-ups and do some squats, then that's fine. And then I'd like to conk out around then. Unless they start doing like a human growth hormone and revitalization treatments that extend the human lifespan. I think I'm going to try to fall out around 80. Big Hoth 98. I'll admit total vibes based, but this is for 10 euros. I'll admit total vibes based, but I feel like some on the left would also be cheering for this if their side was saying it, but now it's the worst thing known to man. So, this might be an inaccurate reflection of what you think might be partisan criticism of anti-Semitism on the right, but I guarantee you that I spent a healthy chunk of time on one show or two shows ago cussing out Hassan Piker because I thought he is illiterate. I think he has the reading comprehension of a middle schooler, and I think he's a fucking idiot who doesn't deserve his platform. So, my personal perspective. Fuck that guy, metaphorically, in his stupid ass. €5 from Big Hoth 98. Fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Where was this energy in 2020? Getting along racially and culturally left the station a long time ago. I'm not as pessimistic as you guys. Here's something that's kind of interesting to me. I live in Florida. We're a plural, cosmopolitan, Hispanic-heavy society. And I walk outside, and of course, like, yeah, I'm in the lily white neighborhood on the right side of town, but I travel to the bad side of town too. And what happens is working class and middle class Hispanics in normie neighborhoods going to normal schools. There's no shootings, there's no stabbings, there's no violence. There's occasional domestic violence where somebody will get murdered. There's occasional child sex abuse and murder that happens, but it's like 1 out of 1 million or 1 out of 20,000 or 1 out of 50,000. It's not pervasive at all. And the 3 or 4 times that it happens is like local news huge, and sometimes it'll go national, right? In Central Florida. Then, so Hispanics and whites and Asians, if they're working class, middle class, or upper class, they all get along. And then when it comes to black folk, there's a decent chunk of middle class black folk who have made it out of the hood. Nobody gives a fuck. Everybody's nice to each other. We don't yell racial epithets at each other. Everybody's chill. And so, like, if you go to a daycare or a school or a movie theater or karate class or whatever, there's no underlying tension between working class and middle class, folks. Who I would say is kind of left out of the American dream is on the west side of the highway. There's a few historically black neighborhoods that are majority black, 90, 95%, of whom 90 to 95% of them are working class and middle class schlubs. They go to work, they pay their bills, they come home, they're chill, right? But there's a remaining 5% of people who view crime as a vocation, and they make that neighborhood a living hell. And so they'll break into everybody's shit. They'll carjack all the cars. They'll get into gang shootings. They'll deal drugs, et cetera, and they'll make that neighborhood a living fucking hell for everyone who lives there. But 95% of the people they kill are each other. So gangbangers kill other gangbangers. Gangbangers kill junkies. That's who they kill. They don't come onto the middle class, nice, lily white and Hispanic middle class neighborhoods. They stay in the fucking hood and they kill the fuck out of each other. And I think that's largely because they know that if they come over here, they're going to get fucked up by local police real quick. And so I want to heal that community as much as possible, because I would like it if working class and middle class black folk didn't have to worry about violence as much as everybody else. But in no way is this an existential threat to the continent or to the American Republic. And to pretend that it's an existential threat, I think is absolute fucking cope. Not only that, but I do think that, like, yeah, sure, if like 200,000 Mexicans show up tomorrow and none of them speak English and they don't have any skills, that's going to be a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. However, if their kids, go to the decent schools and then get a decent education, and then 2 or 3 generations down, they're just as normie and PS2 playing fucking workaholics like everybody else, then who gives a shit? It's not existential. And I think that you guys who think that it's existential, I think you're fucking coping and you're not touching grass enough. Connor sits wearing a pickle hube listening to Prussian marches. True. I only do that on my computer that's not hooked up to the internet, right? I won't make Vosh's mistake. I won't show you my goon folder, which is Prussian marches and weird German memorabilia. Brianna appreciates the dirty rap based. Yeah. A lot of you guys are really into the grungy, hypersexual fucking rap. Did not expect that. Lots of conservatarians in my fucking chat. I did not expect all of you to be filthy fucking hip hop degenerates. All right. America First Son, not even hard. Yellow Knight, I knew your answer, but that's okay. Red meat is fantastic. Chicken nuggets and alphabet fries, true. Counterpoints 40K, how old are you now? I am in my mid-30s, but it's about to be my late 30s. So, yeah. Keto/meat is way to go if you have extra pounds to lose with workouts. Maybe, but I don't think it's probably like a long-term health strategy. Eddie, Counterpoint says, can I have Chanel? I'm not buying you Chanel. You should buy me Chanel. Give me a dono. If you mean channel, then the politics channels are down in the description, and the Warhammer channel you are on right now. So, yeah. Did you watch the Borderlands movie trailer yet? No, but I'll check it out. I do love me some violence. So if Borderlands is based off of the video game, and I think the video game is kind of like weird, steampunky, cartoony, futuristic violence, that could be fun. At Counterpoints, what's the largest animal you feel like you could drop with one punch? You get full wind up, they can't flinch or defend themselves. Maybe an ostrich. An ostrich, yeah, I could do like a large bird. That's probably about as like a human-sized bird I could probably knock the fuck out. Maybe a kangaroo, but I heard kangaroos are tough as shit, and I don't know how thick their skulls are. I would have said pony, because I think like I can't drop a horse. Maybe I could knock out a pony, but then I realized that horses have really thick skulls, and I don't know how thick a pony skull is. So again, give me a bird with kind of like thin bones, and I could probably take him. So ostrich and maybe a pony, but probably not. I can knock out some dogs. Yeah, probably there. Cuban, Argentinian, heavy in Florida. Yeah, we do get the good Hispanics. And what I mean by that is Puerto Ricans, obviously, sometimes they speed a lot. They listen to annoying music. Sometimes they litter or whatever. But largely, they're Americanized because Puerto Rico is a territory, right? Argentinians are, obviously, they're just whites. You know, they're Spanish. They killed all their indigenous people. And then Cubans, Cuba is just like a based... It's just like a base culture. Like, minus the communism, they... You know, they seem to be happy, healthy. They love to drink. They love to party. They love to dance. They love to work out. They love baseball. So Cubans in general are relatively cool folks. So yeah, we do get a lot of those, but we do have a healthy chunk of Mexicans. I think that's just because like Mexicans will always like, they'll send out little colonial batches of people out to different areas. And then once you have like a few dozen Mexicans, then they're going to get their families to follow suit. So yeah, we do have a healthy chunk of Mexicans as well. And by the way, like there is a subset of Mexican culture that doesn't want to assimilate and wants to worship gang culture. And I bumped into that more when I was in California. I think most Mexican immigrants who are working are actually decent people who want to provide for their families and then fulfill the American dream. At least that's what I see around here. I don't see a lot of like neck tattooed gangsters throwing up middle fingers to the cops and getting into running gunfights with each other in law enforcement. That doesn't happen around here. West Coast, that might happen, but that doesn't happen here. Big Hoff 98 says, at Counterpoints 40K, totally agree. Normals are base. That dono was about the end of Chink's video. I know I'm letting my right-wing side out today, but really frustrates me the whole white people are evil thing. No, of course. I like white people. I think they're based. I think they're kind and largely good people. I think that white people are largely well-intended. I think that our colonial forebears did plenty of fucked up shit, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's in the past. Let's make the world a better place. That's all we can do. Big Hoff 98, that the left does and then turn around and drop the why can't we get along. True. There is a lot of like very aggressive fighting and then, oh, you're winning now? Ooh, why can't we be friends? Yeah, absolutely. Iron within, true. Iron within, iron without. Absolutely. That trailer is basically Guardians of the Galaxy with old people. I'll watch it off stream because I don't want to get copyright struck at the last second. So I'll watch it off stream. But you said it was Borderlands? Kangaroo would fuck you up, Connor. You say that like you're actually an Aussie. I am. So I understand there can be pretty large, muscular kangaroos. I understand that totally. I am 6'4", 230 pounds. I have done martial arts in the past. I think that I could take a kangaroo that was smaller than me. So if there was like a 5'10" kangaroo, I think I could box that kangaroo. And I also think I could grapple him, and I think I could snap his arms off of his body. Now, he might kick my chest in, and I might have a heart attack after he kicks me so hard that, you know, he could move a fucking truck. But if he doesn't kick my chest in, I think it's a decent fight. Based anti-comunistas. True. Michael Hayes says, record live viewers you ever got. Next goal for channel and viewership. Record live viewers was like 150. And to be honest, so I can get 30 to 50 on anything. So if I do a 1v1, if I'm just doing a debate with a rando Discord person, whatever, I can get 30 to 50 people. If I'm doing hot drama, or if I'm doing a debate, I can get 70 to 120. And that is if I'm like, that is if the topic is popping. That's if the debate is popping. That's if it's a good night for people, et cetera, 70 to 120. And we hit 70 today, so that's not like a bad day for me. And then cross-platform. So I had like 10 on Twitch, and I had, 60 on YouTube at the peak. So the longer I'm on and the hotter the topic, the better. In my channel peak was React Andy to drama at 150. So when I was telling Brianna, like, drama does well, low-hanging fruit does well, it's funny. A lot of effort goes into debate. A lot of effort goes into even just getting me and Brianna into the same room. There's more effort. React Andying to drama is probably the least amount of effort and the most amount of payback. So what I would recommend any streamer, anybody who's considering streamer, if you're starting, React Andy, follow hot topics, be funny and weird, and that's all you really need to do. And be articulate. And you could probably do really well. I just don't have the time to dedicate it, and I don't have as much of the interest. If I was doing this full time, that's what I would do is, yeah, I'm going to do political debates, but I would dedicate a healthy chunk of the week to React Andying hot current events, because I think that's where the viewership is at. Doesn't Fidel Castro have the most assassination attempts ever? Dude, I don't know what's American propaganda and Cuban propaganda when it comes to Fidel Castro. Honestly, I think a dude with a good bolt-action rifle could have probably taken him out, but CIA just couldn't get it going. What's your opinion on the new military drone meta? I'll tell you, if I was an infantryman, I would be fucking terrified. I'm happy I was an infantry, and I feel bad for new infantrymen, because if I had to worry about a $20 drone fucking flying down at 40 miles an hour and hitting me with a fucking grenade-sized explosive, that's worse. That's worse than VB IEDs and IEDs. I thought IEDs were fucking bad. I didn't think the drone IED meta is horrific. As bad as Candace Owens is, she never inspired a terrorist to kill a bunch of cops. Cough, cough, Gavin Long. True. True. TYT said some spicy things about cops, and they got 5 cops killed. Bunch of dicks. So true. I heard kangaroo feet have sharp claws. They're not just kicking, they're trying to eviscerate. Wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised. Yeah, with brass knuckles, large kangaroo getting dropped. Thank you, Vlad. You and I don't see eye to eye on much, but I appreciate your faith that a human being could knock out a kangaroo if he had brass knuckles. So why does Candace Owens suck again? It was mostly just anti-Jewish shit. To be honest, her cultural conservatism takes I didn't have much of a beef with. Brandon Meyer says, I'm 6'1", 250, but the American that tell me not to be afraid of wildlife. Bang, bang. Yeah. If I can shoot him, I can win. Outside of Australia, the U.S. has more wildlife that could kill you anyways, lol. Not too many grizzly and brown bears. Yeah, I would never take a brown bear. I think I could fight a black bear and survive while still being mauled. A Kodiak or grizzly, if it is even smaller than me, those bears will fuck you up. It is not even close. They are just well-built killing machines. My question stemmed from my buddy and I watching Conan the Destroyer last night and getting into a heated debate about his ability to knock out a camel. Ostrich is a good answer. True. Camel seems like you're stretching it. I think camels have pretty thick skulls. Helldivers and Dragon Dogma are the hottest games right now. I'm a huge fan of Helldivers. You suck and you should freeze in the Siberian gulag, you Nazi parasite scum, at Counterpoints. Says John Joseph Stalin 45. Okay, cool. Well, I hope you have a stroke and your guards are incapable of resuscitating you and they're too terrified to let you do anything, so you poop yourself and pee blood and you die in disgrace. And then I hope your body is put into stasis, where it's kept inside like a deoxygenated tank where people can see your stroked out corpse. So you want me to die in a Siberian gulag? That's what I hope for you. That is one fucked up life, though. True. Black bears are kind of pussy. True. If you live. One guy stabbed a black bear 400 times with a small pocket knife, but yeah, he got fucked up. Yeah. So black bears are not temperamentally designed to fuck up humans, but they still have the physical ability to do so. So yeah. I have a feeling that Veal Fair and Joseph Stalin are the same one. Unsubscribed, you Zionist cuck. Traitors are filth. Okay. Fat ass yanktard. I'm not even that fat. I got like an extra 10, 15 pounds, but I'm not that fat. Jesus. And that's okay. Veal Fair, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. We got HMR subscribing and we got unrandom subscribing. So eat a dick. Eat a bowl of fucking wieners, you sack of shit. I hope you stub your toe today. You deserve the Hamas treatment. Okay. Oh, we're gonna go ahead and mute you. Eat a dick. Anyways. True, Christian Valeris. True. Speaking of which, I got stuff to do. So, anyways. I'm going to go take care of the family. Normally, Sunday streams during the day are not going to be a thing just because I have to take care of the family. But I do. Jonah Boy, Christian Valeris, Brandon Myers, Intuitive Jackal, Unrandom, thank you for subscribing. HMR, thank you for subscribing. Vlad the Kebabber, thanks for dropping by, even though we don't agree on much. Cole G, good to see you. Northeast UK viewers, thanks for hanging out. Jonah Boy, if I haven't mentioned you. Michael Myers, RC, always good to see you. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. I wish you all, Sir Liamson, thank you. Thank you to Big Hoth for the donos. I hope you all have a beautiful night. Northeast UK viewers, 07. Have a fantastic one. Bespoke Style in UK says, just arrived. What the fuck is going on? What did I miss? Rewind. You got it. I believe in you. Have a great night. Bye for now.